Thanks, Malia, for that great conversation. And I want to welcome Dave DuPont and Alex Wu for our next conversation around building tech capacity. Before we get started, I want to invite each one of them to tell us a little bit about who they are and the great tech companies that they run. Dave, do you want to go first?
Sure, Jennifer. My name is Dave DuPont. I'm the CEO of TeamSnap. I founded the company 11 years ago, and the idea for the company came from my experience as a lacrosse coach and also as an executive in tech companies. As a lacrosse coach, I realized that there was an opportunity to make everything associated with communication and coordination around team sports much easier than what I was experiencing. So that's what we embarked upon 11 years ago. We've been successful since our founding and now can claim that 24 million people around the world, parents, players, coaches, and managers, have experienced TeamSnap.
Wow, that's amazing. In 11 years, that's incredible. And Alex, I know HomeCourt is a relatively new company to the scene, but can you tell us a little bit about HomeCourt?
Absolutely. Hi, my name is Alex. I'm on the founding team of it's a company called Next Team. We're a mobile artificial intelligence company. We're the makers of HomeCourt, and HomeCourt is the first app that we built with our mobile AI technology. And essentially what HomeCourt does is we use your phone's camera to track and chart all your different types of basketball activity, very much the same way maybe your Apple Watch measures your cycling and running activity. But we do that for basketball just with using your phone's camera. And we started in a little bit differently, like you said, Jen, just a couple of years ago that we launched. And a lot of that's because technology, hardware and software has advanced so far that we could actually do some of the magical things we can do just using your phone's camera.
How has technology been able to streamline a lot of the challenges that many of our community-based organizations face in making sport more accessible to all?
Sure, Jennifer. So the initial problem that I saw when I was that coach 11 years ago was that coordination and communication to repeat what I said earlier was a mess. And I just wanted to make it easier. I realized, having been in the tech world for a while, that we could make it a lot easier. I validated the opportunity by talking to my peers. And I would usually say something like, so what's it like, just being organized for your kids' activities or for your sports activities? And every time I brought up the topic, I would hear this, oh, it's a mess. And you could argue that what we started off doing was simply making sure everyone on a team, everybody associated with a team, showed up at the right place at the right time with the right stuff. We're talking about a really simple task here, but it was taking an inordinate amount of time. And the technology we introduced and have improved upon, and there are other companies in the world who do some of the same things we do, that has already dramatically improved the experience of, again, those people, of people involved in sports, and the proof is in the pudding.
The advantage of the HomeCourt app is that it really extends the engagement that a youth athlete and their family can have with coaches. So what does that look like, and what's possible moving forward?
Yeah, so at HomeCourt, we really think of technology, talk about accessibility. Innovation for us is really making technology as accessible as possible. That's where you see kind of the greatest benefits really come to play. Those tools accessible to as many people as possible. One of the things we certainly did during this pandemic, still around March, we were very much like an individual training experience. You can get content and coaching, experiences, training experience with our AI technology that helps you track and tell you how you're doing and how you're not, very much like, again, your treadmill will or your Peloton would, but for basketball. So you can learn from people like Steve Nash or Stu Bird or JJ Redick about how they approach the game, but also get a assessment of how you're doing and track your progress and improvement. But really quickly, we also started to enable more tools for teams, and because we realized that it takes a village to really develop a player. It's not just your individual work. You want to have the accountability from your coaches. You want to have the social connection and motivation from your peers. And we need to bring all those things together to really kind of, again, help a player really reach their potential. And so we launched a few different features this year, HomeCourt for Teams, just this last quarter to really help facilitate that and integrate those things together. And also working with TeamSnap, to Dave's point, creating those tools, communication is so important. A lot of the relationship is between a player and a coach and a player and their teams. And how do we help facilitate those things? We actually also launched integration with TeamSnap this year to make that integration even better. I think we all know that our communities don't think about app, they just think about how do I solve the problem that I have. And if we can make that easy as possible, that's part of our job. And so I really do think to answer your last point, the last question, a lot of these things you really need to, what the future is, like really how to bring these things together even more tightly so that we can just create better experiences for our communities.
Other really critical issues that we're facing right now is concerns related to health and safety. And I know, Dave, that this has been top of the mind for TeamSnap as you guys have thought about future integrations and really addressing the health and safety concerns that families are facing right now as they think about safe return to play. So can you tell us a little bit about what you guys have done and maybe even what's moving forward or what's planned for the future?
Sure. So we view our mission as taking the work out of play. And part of what people should be focused on right now in terms of work is making sure that as sports resume, they resume safely. So we have put a fair amount of resources into aiding that mission. One of the things we've been doing is simply reporting. We're the largest in terms of sports communication and management. We're the largest platform in the world, 24 million users. So we have a good feel based on what we see on our platform every day for the return to sports activity. So on our website, you can see an interactive map that shows the return to sports by sport, by location in North America, state or province, which in and of itself is healthy because administrators of organizations can look at that data and understand what are people doing in terms of the return to sports in other places or in my state or province. So that in and of itself is healthy. We also have introduced, and this happened back in August, what we call Health Check. Health Check is an automated and integrated COVID-19 screening tool.
I want to now turn to coaches because I know both your platforms really offer that one-stop shopping for coaches as well. So Alex, can you tell us a little bit about how coaches can use HomeCourt and specifically what trainings available to them through the platform?
Yeah, so there's a few different ways that coaches have been using HomeCourt, and we launched HomeCourt for Teams just last quarter to again help create essentially what is like a Facebook group experience, but with a HomeCourt flair. And so there's a few different things that we enable. One is, we can bring your teams together in one place on HomeCourt and allow them to do two things together, compete and connect. And I think when we talk to our community, that's, at the core of why a lot of kids join sports, certainly why I did. I want, and why I joined team sports in particular, right? And not, a more individual sport. Like I want to be part of a team and I want to compete with them. But I also want to, and there's a big part of it, and the connection is really important. And I think what we heard from parents and coaches specifically during this time is like, my kids missed the competition, but they also really missed the connection.
Yeah, no question. And I think what I'm struck by the most, in both of you talking, is that it's very clear that this is not something that you can do alone, and that not only did Alex mention the TeamSnap HomeCourt integration, but it's clear that there's lots of other partners that you have in this space. And so, curious if you could just spend a minute or two talking about the power of those partnerships and what they've allowed you to do as a platform in terms of ensuring more access for more families to quality sport opportunities. Dave, why don't you start with that?
Yeah, I'll start off. And I didn't really go into this in detail. I just mentioned that I was in tech. But prior to TeamSnap, I was involved in the computer industry for many years. And one of the great successes of the computer industry is the collaboration. We call it co-opetition. In other words, companies were competing against each other, but they also collaborated. And there were standards around many of the aspects of the technology that allowed different companies to focus on different parts of a solution but to ensure that things work together. So the technologies we enjoy today are significantly benefiting from these standards. Now, how does that apply? I'm kind of talking tech jargon here, but how does that apply to this world? Well, if I think of all the things that could make people's lives easier, if I think of all the value that we could provide folks involved in sports, guess what? It's way too much for TeamSnap to do by itself, or TeamSnap in HomeCourt, or TeamSnap in 10 companies. So I am, and we've been working on this, and others in the industry are as well. I envision a world in which everything works together. We started to do this in a small way with HomeCourt. We have, we've made, they're called APIs. We've made the key part of our software that allows different elements of our software to talk to other parts. We've made those APIs, application programming interfaces, public, so that external companies like HomeCourt and others can connect to our platform, so that we may not be able to do everything, but in combination with other companies that connect to us, we can offer a rich solution for those that are involved in sports.
As you talked about, a broad community engaged with your app.
Yeah, absolutely. So, obviously one of our biggest partnerships is with the NBA. And, we have a variety of different ways that we work with them. But one of the things that we talked about in terms of accessibility and opportunity, and I personally am very excited about, is our work around talent discovery. And so one of the things we've done with them recently, and this is before COVID, we actually announced this experience in February during the All-Star game, which was an experience called NBA Global Scout. So it's been running for, I think at this point, almost 6-7 months. And the goal here was to provide basically an experience on HomeCourt where we can help, kids who, again, have the potential, again, back to the idea that talent is distributed and opportunity is not, to really find a pathway to find other opportunities so that they can really reach their potential. And so before, usually what the NBA would have to do is, host a variety of different events in a variety of different countries to kind of identify talent in person. And so what we're able to do is really take the experience that they put together, again, at an event like the NBA Draft Combine, and make that, again, completely virtual and accessible on an app like HomeCourt.
So thanks, guys, for this incredible conversation. And it's very clear that both TeamSnap and HomeCourt are true leaders in the sports technology space. And we're proud to call you partners in our effort to build America's new state of play. As we look to the future, I want to hear from you as leaders in the space. What's your advice to other sports technology companies on how to ensure that we have equitable access for all kids to have quality play? Dave, let's start with you.
Yeah, so a couple of thoughts come to mind. First of all, we're capitalists here, right? We founded companies partly to make money, but I think we have the opportunity to have an impact beyond just financial in our communities. And a couple of ways in which we can do this. One, I've referred repeatedly to the fact that, our mission is to take the work out of play. That doing so in and of itself makes it easier for everyone to participate in sports, because the overhead associated with managing and communicating and all that is diminished greatly. And we've started that mission, but we're not the only ones who are going to contribute to making life a lot easier for those involved in sports. The second is to look for ways to reach out to those who aren't playing sports or don't seem to have the opportunity to do so. Part of the reason I'm so passionate about my company and what we're doing is because sports made a big difference in my personal life. This is personal for me. It taught me lots of valuable lessons. I won't get into all of them in this conversation, but I will say I viewed it as a tremendous life experience. And I'm just a normal sports guy. I didn't play professional sports. I didn't play in college, but nonetheless, I benefited tremendously from being involved in sports. I think everyone in society should have that opportunity. And TeamSnap is certainly doing its part in combination and partnership with Project Play, but through other means to promulgate that goal. And I would urge everyone involved in the sports tech community to strive to do the same thing.
Yeah. So well, yeah, so well said. You know, I think I kind of take it in two ways. One is just on a pure technology front. You know, Dave and I, we both been working in technology for a really long time. And, you know, one of the knocks against us in our industry is that we get too into our own
A
stuff.
few years more in my case, I suspect.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. But like one of the things that's always been true is sometimes we get too in love with the technology, the technical aspects of it, and not the experience it delivers to customers. And so I think one of the things that we're really proud of here at HomeCourt, talked about accessibility and, you know, even just general broadband internet Wi-Fi access. You know, one of the things we did in our app very early on was to make sure that you could use a lot of parts of the app offline. And so that, you know, and I think this is important for a variety of reasons. In basketball, like you might be on a playground shooting in a hoop and you want to track your shots, and you might not have a good connection there. So just in that instance, you want the app to be able to work. But in more generally, it's just thinking about things that way, thinking about all the different, you know, use cases that, you know, that could, you know, create friction in an experience. And how do we, again, that's innovation as well. Like we spend a lot of time optimizing the app so you can work offline and store, you know, data efficiently, and then upload it back once you get back online, so you don't lose anything. You know, one of the communities that we've been working very closely with is like, you know, wheelchair basketball communities, and how like they've found a even more engaging way to compete, you know, virtually now that they're together. They're forming their own communities on HomeCourt. And so, you know, I think just thinking about, again, accessibility as much as possible. And we have a lot of work to do there as well. But I think that's a really important and accessibility as part of your design, not just like an afterthought. So on a development point of view, I think that's, you know, something that I hope we see more work around. And the second part is, and we talked about this a little earlier, it's, you know, adopting technology is not easy. There's a learning curve, especially, you know, I used to work in education. My wife is a teacher, and, you know, I even have trouble picking up new stuff now. And we work in this space all the time. And so, and I think just remembering that the people who are going to benefit the most from this also need the most guidance and the most support. And don't forget about that. And as, you know, as elegantly as we can design an experience, there's still like a certain matter of education involved, and don't forget that part, right? And sometimes we get frustrated when, you know, I thought that was obvious. It's never obvious, you know, when you're trying to change behavior or learn something new, just like you're learning a new language. And I think really important for us, if we really want to bring everybody along, we can't just think about early adopters. We can't just think about people who, you know, have a good quote unquote grasp of technology. We really need to think about everybody, especially in different countries as well. You know, there are a lot of different things to think about, but I think, again, just thinking about those two sides playing, how to design for accessibility, but also think about the, you know, the right onboarding processes, and that it's not a one-time thing. They go through your experience and now they know how to do it. It's like, it's never that easy. Reinforcing those things, teaching versus just telling, I think is, you know, a big part of how we can help move the industry forward, and just make, you know, again, make our technologies more and more useful for more and more people.
Dave and Alex, thanks for a great conversation. And more importantly, thanks for the entrepreneurial spirit you bring to our work.